Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Green Things Summit. Today, we are shining a spotlight on green technologies, eco forward strategies, and the future that we're collectively shaping. And we're kicking things off with the state of green things. In this opening panel discussion, our incredible panel will dive into how sustainability is evolving across industries, how AI and emerging tech are unlocking bold new paths for climate action, and why valuing ecosystems and biodiversity is essential for long-term impact. And the Green Things Summit is all about putting the future of our planet center stage. And this impactful event is proudly brought to you by IoT Marketing, and we're absolutely thrilled to have you join us here today. So thank you for being a part of this important conversation. And we'd love to hear where you're watching from, so please drop a note in the chat and let us know where you are. And we're lucky to have such a diverse global community. It's always amazing to find out where people are based. And I'm Tiffany Nielsen, the CMO of IoT Marketing and the creator of IoT Marketing's virtual events. And I'm joining from Las Vegas. And to start things off, I'd like to introduce our CEO and founder of IoT Marketing, Johannes Beekman. How are you today, Johannes, and where are you joining from?
I'm doing great, Tiffany, and I'm joining from Austin, Texas.
Great. And can you share with the audience a little more about your background and expertise?
So I've been in high tech, well, embarrassing to say, but I've been in high tech since the mid 80s and starting in semiconductors, building semiconductor fabs. At that time, we were already thinking for a semiconductor fab, use a lot of energy, chemicals, and water. So we were already thinking about energy reduction and building green fabs. So did that for about 25 years, then changed to sales and marketing. And that's how I ended up with a couple of marketing companies and now with IoT Marketing.
Thanks, Johannes. And next, we have Paulina Marinkovic, a strategic environmental consultant. How are you today, Paulina, and where are you joining from?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Tiffany. I am joining from the Big Apple, New York City.
Great. And can you share with us more about your background and expertise?
Yes, sure. I'm an environmental manager. My background is on ecosystems and environmental management and conservation, but of flora and fauna. But I also have a background on energy and distributed energy generation and resilience and redundancy in cities. I have different master's degrees and also master's in business administration. So kind of mix all of that together to create and provide consulting services. And my experience is everything encompassing energy systems and climate and conservation.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Paulina. And next up is Scott Bryson, the CEO and founder of Orbital Farm. How are you today, Scott? Where are you joining from? And tell us about your background and expertise.
Thanks, Tiffany. Great to be here. It's wonderful to join the session again this year. I'm calling in from Toronto in Canada. As you mentioned, I run a company called Orbital Farm. So I'm a sustainable infrastructure architect. So I spend my days designing and putting together large industrial projects that tackle sustainability, produce renewable energy, sustainable chemicals and materials or products, sustainable food systems. I work at the intersection of project finance and development, and work with large multinational companies to help develop and build more sustainable supply chains and manufacturing facilities. So really excited to be here and for this conversation.
Great. Thank you so much, Scott. And we also have Shauna Vita Gavron, the CEO and founder of Endangered Wildlife OU. Shauna, how are you today? Where are you joining from? And tell us a little bit about your background and expertise.
Great. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm coming in from central France. My background is quite mixed, similar to Paulina, very mixed background, combination of finance and conservation. I worked about 15 years as sell-side institutional equity analyst but my company, Endangered Wildlife, we've been working with the financial valuation of biodiversity for the last 6 years to help promote the integration of biodiversity into business and call it best of class sustainability reporting to really understand what your real impact is in monetary terms of biodiversity.
Great. Thank you so much. And for those of you only watching the live stream of our opening panel, we invite you to join us on our event platform to attend the full day of sessions where you can also network and visit our virtual expo hall. You can also register and get your free pass for the live event now at iotmktg.com, and you'll also see the link posted in the chat. And please continue to drop us your locations. We love hearing where everyone's watching from. And sustainability is at the core of all of our IoT marketing events. So to start things off, I have a question for all of you that I have a feeling you'll all have a different answer for. Starting with Johannes, what does sustainability mean to you, and what sustainable efforts do you feel are most impactful?
Well, Tiffany, we are the guardians of our planet, whether we realize it or not. So for me, sustainability is about protecting the environment while using technology to make energy grid smarter, conserve wildlife, and even track climate shifts with sensors, satellites, drones, and machine learning tools. So I believe that leveraging AI to optimize energy grids and boost renewable integration so we can decarbonize faster, and using IoT sensors with data analytics to monitor and protect ecosystems are among the most impactful efforts. So that's one side of the AI coin, but there is another. So in February 2024, I wrote an article explaining why generative AI is the new printing press. And in the past year, it has become the new printing press in ways once unimaginable. However, I have to say, generative AI is a very, very energy-hungry printing press.
Thank you, Johannes. And Paulina, the same question to you. What does sustainability mean to you, and what sustainable efforts do you feel are most impactful?
I think for me, sustainability means recognizing our interconnectedness with all things Earth and being accountable for our impact on our ecosystems. So we can create cleaner air, safer water, healthier food systems, and more equitable communities. Today, not just for tomorrow. So it's not just thinking about our future generations. And it's not just about preventing harm in the future. It's about improving quality of life for people and ecosystems that we depend on in this moment for our physical and mental health. And the most impactful efforts, in my view, are those that combined systemic change with community engagement and change entire cities and rural areas with a positive butterfly effect that crosses boundaries. And for that, we definitely need government support, private business, and partnerships across all industries. So you need to engage. So there is a lot to work with in there. And what efforts? I think, for example, circular economy practices that reduce waste, reduce materials, but mainly we need to design for longevity. So it reduces waste. That's one of the biggest things. We're a disposable culture. And also, things that can transform industries and individual behavior. I believe efforts that are inclusive, scalable, and rooted in accessibility are the ones that create lasting change. And of course, big changes in energy production with AI and consumption. And for all this, we need big mind shifts that require strategy and communication.
Thank you so much, Paulina. And Scott, what does sustainability mean to you, and what sustainable efforts do you feel are most impactful?
I want to echo both Paulina and Johannes's perspective on this. I think sustainability in the context that I work in are large infrastructure assets, and so data centers are one of these key assets that we are rapidly developing, growing to fulfill in the needs of AI processing systems, the entire sensor networks and automation systems that we're developing and building into all of our infrastructure, and rapidly going through this massive growth of new infrastructure development. This drives energy, this drives water use, this drives communities. And so sustainability really means, to me, where you define this box, and normally how we look at investments, how we look at assets that we're trying to deploy. If you're the context of a Microsoft or a Meta or an Amazon, you're looking at a data center as specifically this individual asset where the servers are located and housed. But sustainability and building a sustainable data center, for example, must take into account the energy that is used to power that facility, how that backup power and the operation of that facility is not just a bunch of diesel generators sitting around waiting for a power failure, but playing an active role in storing some of that energy, playing an active role in stabilizing the ecosystem and the grid that data center operates in. The building itself being thermally efficient and being able to move thermal energy out of that building and out of those servers um, efficiently. But then importantly, all of that waste heat, as a good example, that waste heat, today we evaporate water. If you draw the square of where we look at what is sustainable or not, it needs to include the external environment that we operate and live and thrive in. And that waste heat needs to be utilized. And there's plenty of different tools and technologies that you can do, from simple things like a greenhouse to something more complex like a district heating system. And so the sustainable approach is looking at the ecosystem, including nature, including the physical infrastructure, including the energy assets, and taking all of those elements into account and designing an elegant solution that addresses each of these opportunities and risks and challenges. And that begins from the physical asset and how you design and architect that solution, which partners you bring in. But importantly and critically is the finance and the capital allocated towards engineering these solutions and bringing together these partners. And so it has to start from finance to the technologies to the long-term operation of these facilities in the context of the entire ecosystem that you're operating in. So the most impactful types of assets and approaches really take that holistic approach, and we're working with clients and investors that really care about that.
Thanks, Scott. I love that approach. Approaches, rather. And Shauna, what does sustainability mean to you, and which sustainable efforts do you feel are most impactful?
Well, I think, considering my background with biodiversity, to me, sustainability is about maintaining an ecological balance and actually acknowledging that we need a balance between human activity, the natural resources, which are very much limited, and reconnecting with nature. It's all about actually integrating with biodiversity rather than isolating society and economy from biodiversity, because no matter how much we try to deny it, biodiversity is essentially our greatest employer, it's our greatest employee, it's our greatest trade partner, even the ones that we don't commonly think about. So to me, the most impactful efforts are effectively those that actually allow the other approximately 9 million species to do their jobs. So whether it's a tiny spider or medium-sized spider that's helping to actually control fly populations, mosquito populations, which then can have a positive impact on things like malaria, all the way through to the largest of the blue whales, which we know are important for carbon cycle controls. So when we actually start to allow them to do what they do best, then we effectively have a greater chance of having a sustainable future for current generations. And I kind of mirror what Paulina was saying. We need to focus on the current generation and maybe less focused on future generations, because to me, the current generations are already suffering. We need to solve the problem now. And as I said, for me, very much the sustainability aspect is being able to look at how do we integrate with biodiversity, how do we integrate with nature, and actually allow it to function and not fight against it, and accept that all of what's around us, what's been given to us naturally, is not a cost to us. It's something that's a benefit, and it can actually help us survive and move forward in the future.
Thank you, Shauna. And we have several sustainability related tracks coming up later in the Green Things Summit, such as Sustainable Shopping Made Simple, The AI Revolution in Consumer Goods by Ashish Chatterjee, the role that local communities play in sustainable efforts, which is Conservancy as a Catalyst for Urban Revival by Jonathan Hofberg of Lake MC, and then Why Animal Intelligence is a Sustainability Trend to Monitor. And I do see some locations coming through in the chat. So hello to Norway, and Leona in Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean. So we've got the Arctic and the Caribbean. And it's clear that sustainability is a multifaceted conversation, whether through ethical, consumerism, or conservation. It's a thread that connects all areas of innovation. And one of the most powerful tools that we have to accelerate sustainable change is technology, which brings us to our next topic of discussion, green tech. So let's start by diving into the hottest topic in tech right now, artificial intelligence. AI is reshaping the way that we understand and address environmental challenges, and it's also unlocking new pathways for sustainable progress. Johannes, AI has been criticizing for straining the grid due to its extreme power demands. But what are some ways that AI is actually helping to make the grid more efficient?
Well, Tiffany, currently AI systems are already crunching the real-time data coming from sensors and smart meters to optimize power dispatch, making adjustments much faster than we can do with traditional methods, up to 12 times faster. And they can also balance supply and demand almost instantly. So on top of that, and that's a newer development that we're seeing, is the AI systems can also forecast potential outages and enable self-healing grids that can reroute power or dispatch crews automatically, boosting reliability and reducing wasted energy. So the list goes on, and these are just a few examples, Tiffany.
Thanks, Johannes. And to take this a step further, not only are efforts being made to make the grid more efficient, but also for grid decarbonization. Paulina, as we look at AI and data center demand, can you tell us about the new policies, rules, and regulations for the grid?
Sure. So AI requires increasingly powerful chips and intense cooling systems, which actually drives energy demand growth. And like you said, it's been criticized for creating more energy demand. So actually between 2017 and 2023, data centers power demand more than doubled with the rollout of more AI servers. And in a 3 years from now, it's expected that data centers would account for up to 12% of US total electricity consumption. So those are things that should definitely be taken into account. But regulations are increasingly targeting where and how data centers connect to the grid. So, for example, some states are requiring new data centers to source energy from renewables or contribute to grid infrastructure upgrades. There's also a growing push for AI systems to become more energy efficient and for data centers to operate flexibly, supporting grid stability instead of straining it. There's actually a Sustainable Data Centers Act specific to New York State. I'm sure other states and other countries have their own acts and rules and regulations. I am aware of the one that we have here, and it's a proposed legislation that aims to regulate the energy consumption of data centers, and renewable energy mandates data centers would be required to source at least 33% of their energy from renewable sources by 2030. and increasing to 66% by 2035 and achieving 100% by 2050. And then there is NYSERDA's Industrial and Process Efficiency Program, which is the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. And this program offers financial and technical assistance to data centers aiming to implement energy efficient equipment and practices. As for utilities as a whole, FERC released the Order Number 1920, which mandates utilities to plan 20 years ahead for regional transmission needs with updates every 5 years. It also requires a default cost sharing plan, which is for state regulators to facilitate cost-effective expansion of transmission facilities. And that was not a part of the plans before this cost sharing. So transmission providers are required to collaborate with state entities, incorporating their input into scenario development and cost allocation methods. So this collaborative approach seeks to balance regional needs with state-specific policies and goals. And in New York, NISO, which is the New York Independent System Operator, is actively developing compliance strategies, including stakeholder engagement and scenario development to meet the order's requirements. So we can see now that there is a lot of system and group integration. So a lot of interagencies and interdepartmental work that is going to make everything more seamless. Obviously, the scenarios also require advancements in technology, innovation, and AI. So that helps a lot in short-term and long-term planning. And there's a lot more to this, like the 2050 goals of New York City and the Energy Permitting Reform Act of 2024. But the point is that there are plans in place to manage demand and supply for data centers in relation to AI. And ironically, AI itself can optimize the grid. How we were talking before about it, by forecasting renewable generation like solar and wind, and balancing supply and demand by managing energy storage systems. And of course, these predictions are as good as the management of the data input. So people, us. And I personally think that we should definitely overestimate for long term. It's also important to note that these new rules are also intending to make data center operators responsible for subsidizing additional energy costs incurred by surrounding communities due to their operations. So that's another important financial aspect to it. But with AI, data centers accelerating energy demand at an unprecedented pace, I believe that the main question is how we avoid AI becoming a climate liability. Because we do want advance, we do want technology to achieve more innovation, but not at the expense of the planet and us, our health and our well-being. So the real challenge is now ensuring policies keep pace with AI and technology advancements, and that innovation is guided by long-term public interest, not just public profit.
Thanks, Paulina. You brought up some great points and some very interesting stats. So thanks for sharing this with us. And Scott, you recently shared a post that the first country to decarbonize its grid will see a major economic advantage. Why do you feel that is?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the way to think about decarbonization, the way to think about energy, is really, this is a core resource. So we're moving into a stage of development that electricity is really a driving factor in economic activity for countries, for how we manufacture and produce products. If you look back in time for how humanity has developed, we have always optimized to efficient ways of getting energy. And that first began from agriculture and growing wheat and food energy, to then wood and fire and coal. There's a period where whales were a critical piece of the energy to access oil for lamps and light. And we moved into coal and natural gas. There was a phase of nuclear generation, and now really moving into renewable systems. Solar and wind are now the cheapest form of energy. And if you look back through each of those different time periods, how we optimize our society is really coming to getting to low cost energy production resources. And so now that wind and solar have the ability to be able to provide very consistent, not on a daily basis consistent, but consistent on a long-term basis, 30-year plus timeframes, that your levelized cost of energy for producing that electricity can be incredibly low. This is really what is going to become driving forces and advantages for countries. And so especially in places where you have an overlap of wind resources, of solar resources, of other generation sources like hydro or geothermal, or even ocean wave power are also possibilities. But these locations where you can have this ability to be able to access ultra low cost power generation, this is going to massively advantage manufacturing sectors, from whether that's sustainable chemicals in the hydrogen space, whether that's carbon capture and technologies to be able to capture and turn those carbon molecules into other useful products, whether that's polymers, whether that's fuels, whether that's physical products, or in the context of the earlier conversations, data centers and operating those. Because running and operating a data center, large in part, is really about identify lowest cost energy as possible to access. And when a company or AI systems has an ability to be able to choose where that processing happens, where that data is stored, and move that around on a millisecond basis, they're really going to spend the time to optimize and prioritize those processing places happening in the low cost, levelized cost of energy of that grid. And so this is really where countries, states, cities, or communities, even where you have grid infrastructure that can support not just deployment of a new solar project that gives you low cost energy, but the entire grid infrastructure to be able to support that. This is really going to create significant ecosystem benefits. And the part that's one last piece to emphasize here is that climate and decarbonization strategies carry a significant benefit from the long-term predictability and stability of the businesses that operate in these systems, versus the systems that we're currently in fossil fuel-based systems carry a huge amount of volatility that are driven by global markets in the fossil fuel prices, in the natural gas prices, in policy changes and government changes and incentives from those standpoints. This creates a significant amount of volatility. And there's different policies that are changing in the political winds in North America, for example, compared to in Europe, for example. But the consistent message that I think that consumers and people around the world feel is, we want clean air, we want fresh water, we want sustainable food, we want the ability to thrive in the ecosystem and live in a world. And we understand very clearly, and the science is very clear in terms of what drives that. Now, there are obviously specific countries that have a vested interest in maintaining status quo. And so we see those massive changes. But the countries that begin to prioritize more stable, low-cost energy production systems are going to massively advantage those countries, the companies in those countries, in those locations. And that's really where we're going to redraw that map of the best places to manufacture are going to be in those spots. The best places to do business will be in those places, because you're going to have access to a global market. Thanks.
Wow, that's a lot of information. Thank you so much for unpacking that for us, Scott. And Shauna, do you feel that biodiversity conservation can reduce emissions? And if so, how?
This is always going to be a controversial statement that I'm going to be making. It's not by planting trees. You've got to actually respect natural ecosystems. So this movement of plant a tree to save the planet isn't actually the solution to save the planet. You don't just plant a tree for the sake of planting a tree, especially when you've got a lot of people promoting the planting of GMO non-native trees because they can sequester more carbon. What happens then? It ends up actually destroying the ecosystem and what should be growing naturally. So you, by planting those sort of trees in the wrong location, you're actually causing more problems than anything else. For example, grasslands are effective in sequestering carbon. People just don't talk about it, and they rip up the grasslands to replace them with these GMO trees. So I think the important thing is more about actually, you, as said before, to actually let biodiversity do its own job. It knows what it needs to do, and if you let it do its job, it will help. So you take, for example, your carrion-eating species. You talk about, and those are generally the ones that we hate. We hate because popular media has made us basically hate it. Is talking about things like vultures, things like the hyenas, things like the wolves, certain sharks, even down to crows. They have the ability to help reduce carbon emissions. How do they do that? Approximately for every 1 kilogram of carcass, you have 0.86 kilograms of CO2 equivalent entering the atmosphere. So by allowing the carrion-eating species to actually consume the carcasses, you're preventing the carbon from entering into the atmosphere. So in that way, yes, conservation can help reduce carbon emissions, but you've got to actually allow this. I'm going to keep saying this. You've got to allow the correct species to do their job, because if we start imposing what we believe as a quick remedy, we ultimately are going to cause more problems, and then we're going to have to try to find a solution to fix the problem that we've just created. So it's kind of a toss-up, I would say, but ultimately, yes, the nature is our best solution for solving our carbon crisis, so solving our climate crisis. We just got to start accepting that we need to work with it and not try engineer it too much. We are not, I would say, efficient ecological engineers. Leave it to the proper ecological engineers and accept that we have to work in unison. Basically, we have to unite with it. And then, yes, conservation will definitely be able to help the sort of climate crisis and reduce the carbon emissions.
Thanks, Shauna. I think you brought up some great points, especially when it comes to, preserving the environment rather than try to recreate it with new engineering. Any feedback from the panel on those topics?
I think it's, I love that Shauna said that, because it speaks to what I started with on the interconnectedness. And I think we are, rather than creating solutions and posing solutions in nature, and I think we need to understand it, and we still don't understand it, and how much we are interconnected with it, and by destroying it, we're destroying us. So I think it's definitely not one solution, like Shauna said, about planting trees, and also planting the wrong trees. People think, oh, we'll just plant trees, that's the solution, just carbon capture. But the wrong species of trees can throw off an entire ecosystem. Even in a different country, we've already seen that. Like, mosquitoes will go to a different continent. I mean, sand from deserts, even in the Sahara, and populate part of the soil that is in the Amazon. So that's how we are all so much very well connected in all different parts of Earth. So trying to understand in order to provide a solution, and understanding that we're all interconnected and it's just not one thing. It's going to be a lot of things and a lot of different commitments.
Thanks, Paulina.
And perhaps AI can help with that.
I love it. And I'm glad you brought up the Amazon, because we actually have someone joining from Brazil. So hello, Brazil. Don't be shy. Drop your locations in the chat and let us know your comments. We have Q&A following the session. So drop some questions, get chatty. Let's engage, okay? And
Tiffany.
we're going to hear more about topics later in the event in sessions such as the AI and the future of data centers with Chris Bradley, AI and the rising energy market keynote by Johannes, application of AI for improving infrastructure and delivery and operation by Dennis Truax, and hydrogen, CCUS, and sustainable fuels, supply chain perspective. Johannes, did you have something to chime in?
Yeah, I have a question that would like to ask to Shana. So we have a vault that's already in existence for plants, and to make sure that we don't lose that many plants. Now, in terms of biodiversity, we are losing species on an annual basis. I'm not giving a number, but we are losing species on an annual basis. So my question is there a vault, or should we have a vault to safeguard DNA? Is not a solution, but the species loss is not something that we can stop immediately. If of course we like that, but that's not going to happen. So is there a vault? Is there an initiative to create a vault to protect and safeguard DNA, even from mosquitoes, which of course nobody is a fan of that. But what do you think of the idea of creating a vault?
I haven't heard about a vault for all species. I know I saw the whole thing of the dire wolf and the de-extinction. I actually made a comment earlier this week on this exact topic. Should we really be meddling with de-extinction when we've got so many extinctions coming up anyhow? We should be rather trying to solve the problem. Yes, there's always going to be a natural extinction occurring. We've seen that for over millennia, more than millennia. The problem comes in when we've got the man-made extinction. And before being able to say, oh, if we lose a species, we can always just bring it back to life and we can do de-extinctions, we shouldn't even be getting to that point. We shouldn't be thinking about, can we reverse it through de-extinction? Because once you start going to the process of de-extinction, where is that ethical line going to be drawn? And does that just justify the reason for destroying more nature because of the fact that we can just go back, get the DNA and replicate that species? And once you start doing that also, what about the genetic diversity? We've seen the case already with the wolves in Sweden. The genetic diversity has reduced so much that the wolves themselves are changing their habits from being carnivores to being scavengers. We've got the situation with the seahorses in the area of Rio Formosa in Portugal. They are functioning extinct because we do not have the genetic diversity. We do not have enough, the sufficient population sizes for them to continue. There's only like 750,000 of them left. It sounds large, but it's not sufficient. So if we start falling back on this thing of, well, we can just de-extinct a species, you're not going to have what's needed for basically the idea of survival of the fittest. What are you going to be coming back with? Are you going to come up with actually the weakest of the species coming through, in which case you start actually creating a whole new subspecies potentially? So I would say it's a nice idea to say, well, we can always safeguard the DNA, but we shouldn't really even be getting to that point. We should be trying to restrain ourselves and fix the problem now, rather than having a fallback. Because once you've got a fallback, people say, oh, well, we'll just bring the animal back to life. So that's kind of my opinion on it.
Thank you.
I can check on that too, from that perspective. Like, I think our ecosystem is changing. and it will continue to evolve and change. And so the species that are able to even survive and thrive today will not be the same species, and their practices and their habits and their genes that have been evolved over time through the multiple generations will not cease to provide those same ecosystem benefits and advantages that have allowed them to thrive in the previous time. And so, I think having a repository or a gene bank or a DNA bank of species certainly is of value, but relying on it to restore something is I believe, very naive in thinking that has going to have any practical application aside from zoos and small applications. The scale
Mm.
of ecosystem destruction that we're talking about is literally, it's the globe. So, go out and go scuba diving and go snorkeling right now, because we have probably a decade, maybe a decade and a half left of the biodiversity in those locations, and we can evolve and we can make new species of coral, but and coral will move to other places, and there will still be coral places on the planet. But the problem is when coral moves, it loses all of the hundreds of thousands of years of biodiversity that has built up and become these specialist species that have lived in these symbiotic relationships that takes significant time and coevolution of multiple different organisms to develop that. And that is what we are losing. And the place to see the evidence of that, and it doesn't take very much work to do if you can get to a nice warm place where there are corals, you can see the loss at a dramatic amount. I think I saw yesterday something like a global bleaching event now, like 86% of corals. So, it's bad. And a gene bank of those things and even modified versions are not going to save that biodiversity.
So
Sadly,
preservation is
was.
key. We definitely need to preserve all the species that are out there. But Johannes, way to think outside the box. It's like a whole new twist on Noah's Ark. Way to bring some innovation into the conversation here. And moving on, green tech is laying the groundwork for a sustainable future, but technology is only part of the story. So to fully understand and address the climate crisis, we need to look at the picture, which is the environment itself. And this includes how we monitor and interpret climate data and how we place value on the natural systems that sustain it. And that brings us to our next topic of the environment. So, Johannes, what tech is used to track climate change and climate impact? Is it IoT, AI, SATCOM, drones?
Well, Tiffany, all the above and more. So we use IoT sensors for on-the-ground monitoring. We use drones for high-resolution mapping, satellites and SATCOM for global coverage, and we use AI to analyze and model the data. So together, these technologies give us a real-time 360-degree view of the climate change, the bleaching that Scott just mentioned, and its impact.
Thanks, Johannes. And Paulina, why do strategic communications matter in climate change?
Great question. So I think that communications, going back to what Scott and Shine were also mentioning on all of these other topics, is sometimes things get communicated. I think there is a lot of emphasis and investment in the part that is just educating, and I think we should pass that. So this ties together with what I mentioned earlier about us needing big mind shifts. So without strategic communications, we cannot successfully apply all the sustainability efforts so we can all live in harmony with access to all the things that Earth provides us, including clean air, food, water, and spaces to live in. So we not all speak the same languages, and not even if we speak the same language, we do not speak the same jargon. across the worlds and cities or even smaller communities, we do not all have the same goals, the same needs, same wants. So strategic communications is an opportunity to also translate science and data into personal impact and then into action. There is a lot to understand and unpacked here, many steps, but basically, one of the biggest mistakes in communications and outreach is that organizations and communities and people themselves think that others will see things from their perspective. So everybody thinks of the impact and the goals the same way, and that what matters to them matters to others too. So an example would be the classic. Everybody remembers how the awareness of climate changing, which it changes throughout all the millennia that we've been alive. But when all the anthropogenic movement of climate started, we have the image of polar bears, and everybody's like, oh, they're going to go extinct in the ice. So polar bears are being left without any ice in their habitat. People would wonder, oh, that's sad, but how does that affect me? That's really far away. I'm here in the beach. Right? So we have to find a direct cause and effect that impacts a given person or community. There are things that need to be translated. For example, the polar bears are apex predators, and without them, species like seals could grow unchecked. And that would strain fish populations, which in turn will stress fisheries, and local communities will start having financial problems, plus food supply issues. This could disrupt entire food chains all the way up to global fisheries. There's also a cultural impact. Indigenous communities like the Inuit lose an animal central to their traditions, economy, and identity. And they're also part of revenue from tourism. So tourism will also suffer losses. And because of ice melting, there's rising sea levels, making coastal cities less resilient to weather events. And this is an additional financial strain. So if you're a fisherman, or if you're a tourism agency, or if you're a city government agency, you're part of an indigenous community, the why you should care about the situation of the polar bears or the ice melting is different, and it should be targeted to you specifically. So what you can do will also be different. So the messages in strategic communication is very important. So people are also more accountable of their actions if they are part of the decision making from the get-go. So incorporating people, making them feel part of the process, not that they're being told to do something. So inclusion is key. And storytelling is a great tool for achieving all of the above and passing on the message for action. I think we're past educating people on how climate and weather patterns have changed or can change. It's more about what we need to do and what we can do from now on to have more secure and resilient future in places we live in. That is what should unite everyone really right now. It's about taking action to live well and save. And who wouldn't want that? And I think a lot of the things that are helping this, Shauna was mentioning that interconnectedness, right? You're studying the impact and using AI and how the species will trickle the effects down. So using information like that to inform people and targeting the message to prepare for our future. So, yeah.
Thanks, Paulina. I mean, who wouldn't want to protect the polar bears? But you brought up some great points, and I think that there's still a lot of climate deniers out there. So I think that education is still needed in many areas. But Shauna, strategic communications also matter for biodiversity, especially when it comes to biodiversity investment. Can you tell us more about the financial value of biodiversity?
Yeah, and I'm actually going to go back to something that you said. Everyone loves polar bears, but in a moment. But basically, to tie in with what Paulina said, yeah, communication is important. Like she says, there's not everyone speaks the same language. There is one language that everyone speaks: money. Everyone understands money. If I say to you, red rump tarantula is worth 530 euros on average per tarantula, everyone can understand that. For low income, that's a month of salary. For medium income, that might be a holiday. For high income, that might be a pair of shoes. So everyone can actually relate to money once you start putting things in monetary terms. We are essentially a capitalistic world. We value everything. And I'm specifically emphasizing we value. We don't want a price. We value everything. It's our only way of communicating. We value people every single day. Why not value species, other species? Now, why I say, going back to your thing of the polar, everyone loves polar bears. Now, that sort of emotional appeal works with species that everyone loves. Now, what about the great white shark? No one loves the great white shark thanks to Jaws. Well, I think quite predominantly thanks to Jaws. Now, you've seen the situation of the great white sharks off the west coast of South Africa. It's a unique subspecies of the great white shark. It's been around for millions of years. It is likely to be extinct within the next 10 years. No one really cares because it's a great white shark. Who's going to love the great white shark? Problem being that that great white shark has now disappeared. It means you've got more seals, you've got more medium-sized sharks. The seals are depleting the endangered penguins. And between the seals and the medium-sized sharks, they are depleting the small sharks. They're depleting the main fish for the fisheries. That is an entire collapse of a trophic collapse. Now, this is something that's literally happening this moment. And people say, oh, but the great white sharks, they bite people. We've proven that the great white shark is worth more than the occasional people they bite. How can I make this sort of statement? It's quite an easy thing in that those great white sharks are contributing to the economy. There was, and I emphasize the word was, shark diving tourism. That's gone. No great white sharks, no tourism industry. That was employing people. Yep. There's a societal impact that's there. That has value. There's the Jaws. There's a whole entertainment industry that goes around the great white shark. That is value. People don't think about the fact that Jaws would not exist if there were no great white sharks in the first place. Plus, there's that whole environmental value. Take away the shark, everything collapses. So this is where it becomes quite important in terms of being able to actually financially value biodiversity. It's not, as I emphasize again, we're not pricing biodiversity because, yes, you could argue pricing a life is a form of modern slavery. It is unethical. Whereas if you actually value something, we value people. We've got to accept we've got to level that playing field. You can't value one species and ignore the other 9 million species. And once you can start saying, for example, on average, a Bengal tiger in the Sundarbans of Bangladesh is worth 845,000 euros in 2021. It's effectively employing over 50,000 community members worldwide. It's a multinational corporation called Bengal Tiger. You can start to realize that I can calculate a return on investment. I can actually integrate the tiger. I can reduce costs with the tiger. I can increase employment with the tiger. And it's 10 times the poached value for the tiger. And that's the value of it being alive in a particular area. So there's a whole myriad of things that you can start to do in understanding biodiversity in, as say, that universal language that everyone can actually speak, everyone can understand. So that's where it becomes so important. Once you can start to put that together in your mind, you can actually start to say, well, I can invest in that tiger. I can invest in a great white shark. I can invest in that red rump tarantula that's worth 530 euros. it is actually creating a microeconomy of its own. So without being able to do the evaluation and actually understand this value of the biodiversity, that whole conversation goes out the window. Because then you're just going to say, this is such a cute tiger, let's help the tiger. Oh, spiders, I'm kind of scared of spiders, let's just squash the spider. That spider is actually saving people's lives because it's the main predator of the scorpion. And because of deforestation, the scorpions are entering into urban areas, killing people. Let the tarantula follow, the tarantula is going to protect you. Different way of thinking about biodiversity and realizing that we really, really need biodiversity as part of our economy. We need it as part of our society. And that's why, to me, that monetary value is the only thing that allows you to actually connect and go past all of these barriers of understanding, go past all these sort of linguistic barriers, and actually come to a way of connecting the dots and actually understanding, if I do this, this is my impact. If I do this, this is my return.
Thank you, Shauna. And we actually have a question from the audience. Yay! Good job. Send us more questions. I heard the dire wolf are back. Congratulations. Can you please confirm if this is true?
Who's that for?
For you, Shauna, I would guess. I don't know.
For me. Okay. Well, you could say a form of dire wolf has been de-extincted. I think they had 3 successful wolves born. But yeah, the dire wolf, you could argue, doesn't belong in our current state of being, or our current environment. It doesn't actually belong anymore. So it comes down to that ethical dilemma. Do you actually start to? It's the same as cloning. Do you start to clone things? But yeah, from everything that I've seen, yes, they have brought the wolf back from extinction. Where do they draw the line? I know I heard the thing they want to bring back the dodo. Are we going to go back to the Jurassic Park situation? I think great white sharks won't be our thing to worry about when we've got a T-Rex running around.
Well, if we've got Johannes's DNA bank, you never know what could happen. And we also have a hello to San Diego watching. But Scott, where do we go from here? What do you feel we should do about all this?
I think it's a
big
really
question for
important
Scott.
It's all on you, Scott.
But I think,
Scott, tell us.
Yeah, no pressure.
No pressure.
Well, from a technology standpoint, we have 90% of the solutions that we need to produce energy, make products, decarbonize our industry and technologies today. We are there. We have achieved that goal as a society, as a technological development. And I think that we don't talk about that enough. Back to the climate communication. It's very cool and sexy to look at new venture capital and new technology innovations that drive forward some of these technologies to make them more efficient, to make them more viable or economically viable in more locations. And we need to continue investing in these solutions to continue to improve that. That's great. But at the core, at the base level, we have these solutions. But the thing that we are not doing is we are not deploying these things in enough places at enough speed, and we're working and focused in many wrong areas. And we're very stuck in a linear economy where we focus on only our little business and we only think about the profit that we've made in the last.
Oh, I think we've lost Scott's audio.
I think my hand hit my space bar.
There you are.
we need to move from a short-term thinking approach into long-term thinking approaches. We need to collaborate and work better together, and we need to stop thinking that as a company and as large or small companies that you've got, that you have to do all of these things yourself. The reality is we have institutional investors on the planet that carry half of the cash on this entire earth, 110, 150 trillion dollars. They desire and they want to, and they are demanding investments that to put their capital to use to tackle climate, to tackle sustainability. And they're doing this in fixed income assets. They're doing this in bonds and sustainable linked debt. There is trillions of dollars, $1 trillion a year globally that's issued in sustainable debt. Green bonds that are a part of a subset of that are 4.5 times oversubscribed. That means there's 4.5 times the money out there than there are projects to actually invest in. And so we have huge amounts of capital, literally trillions of dollars wanting to finance solutions. And we are not presenting, or we're not developing enough potential investable solutions to make this possible. And so I think the core thing that we need to do as business owners, as investors, as technology developers, and as just people that are working within these corporations, we need to drive forward and take hold of the reins and drive forward sustainability initiatives, whether that's internally in your operations, whether that's through procurement of products or services. And so it can be as simple as I run a banking entity, and we procure services to store our data and back up our operations and run our processes. Well, how do you procure that? And what restrictions or what opportunities are you putting, or burdens are you putting on your customer or on your data center operators to provide better ecosystem services? How are they dealing with water use? How are they dealing with energy? So from the hands and the control of, you have huge capacity to make an impact. And those become the enabling things that allow new companies to start up and produce more renewable energy, or a new data center to be built that doesn't waste fresh water and provides ecosystem benefits to a local community it operates in, to deploy more renewable energy onto that grid. And so it's through that lens of procurement, and it's also through the lens of investors that prioritize their investment portfolios into allocating money into sustainable investments. Most investors have 30% plus of their portfolio into fixed income and into bonds. Are you putting any restrictions on that? Are you demanding that those investments are being made with sustainable initiatives in mind? Probably not. And probably if you talk to your wealth manager, they probably don't even know where to start and look. But it takes that proactive effort and initiative. So everyone that is here, part of this conference, care at least of something about green. You care about something about sustainability, and we can all make small impacts. But really, at the companies that you work for, you invest in, you operate, these are the places that we can make the biggest changes and shifts.
Thank you, Scott. I'm glad that you have it all figured out for us. Those are some great points, and thank you for sharing those. And we have some more incredible environmentally focused sessions coming up later in today's session, including how smart sensors and AI forecasts are powering a more resilient planet by Scott McCarroll of Vaisala X Weather, and the other AI, Animal Intelligence, by Alexandra Whittington, as well as how accountants can save the world session with Alex Alvey of the Sustainability Suite. A really interesting one on environmental and ecosystem value. So be sure to tune in for those, and you can join us on the platform at iotmktg.com. You can register and get a free pass now. And sustainability is a shared commitment that connects people, industries, and innovations. From rethinking our consumption habits to revolutionizing our infrastructure, each perspective enriches the conversation and highlights the urgency of driving meaningful change. And as we continue the Green Things Summit, we'll explore how cutting-edge technologies, environmental insights, and bold new ideas are shaping a more sustainable tomorrow. So we hope that you'll join us on the event platform as we dive deeper into the possibilities that lie ahead. And from our team at IoT Marketing, we'd like to sincerely thank you all for watching and joining us today. And we're about to begin the Q&A here. So drop any questions that you have in the chat ASAP. And we'd also like to give another big thank you to all of the speakers, sponsors, and media partners, especially Innovate Green and Corzat Technologies. And on a personal note, I'd like to say thank you to our PR director, Rose Begonia, and our production director, Jason Meyer, and our fearless leader, of course, Johannes Beekman. Any final message for our viewers, Johannes?
Well, Tiffany, I think we have a few more minutes on the clock, and I don't want to let this August forum go away. And I have two more questions. One question is, and actually, Paulina, you brought it up in one of your first comments. We have, and we've seen several examples, we have a circular economy. We have a program to roll out a circular economy. We've seen examples of big companies that are pushing it hard. So initiatives like that, or maybe that is the initiative, do they need more visibility? Is it being actively rolled out? Do we need more in terms of circular economy? Question?
Yes, definitely. Visibility is great. People, there is also these mindset in psychology, right? Where somebody says, well, everybody's doing it or nobody's doing it, right? So if somebody picks up even the smallest thing, like somebody may be at an open space and everybody's putting away their trash, everybody will also do it. So monkey see, monkey do. So I think that opening that communication and visibility and companies really portraying what they're doing and that people understand is not like just a marketing strategy, is showing that we can have a good impact and then it trickles down. So I think that it's definitely key. Great question. More of that needs to be done. And I think that it has to be at a greater scale. And there has to be support for companies doing that. A tap on, there is a lot of punishment for companies not doing things, but there is not many incentives and like a tap on the shoulder for doing the right thing, and especially smaller business. So, and like Shauna said, capital and money, it crosses barriers, right? So everybody speaks it. So I think that also focusing on what kind of incentives financially can also help from government, local municipalities, and cities. How can they support companies doing those efforts? But communications is smart communication is definitely going to be very important for outreach. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Paulina. Then next question, and that one is for Scott. And we've highlighted in one of our previous IoT Marketing Live that there is going to be an investment of $500 billion in the US focusing on building out more AI centers and AI parks, basically. Now, here's the dilemma, and hopefully Scott can shed some light on it. AI data centers, AI factories need energy, but where we consume the energy and where we generate the energy, those are two different locations usually, unless you want to put a small nuclear reactor next to each and every AI data center. So what is being done to, and also transporting energy over long lines, of course, leads to a lot of energy loss. So what's being done to develop techniques or solutions, technologies to facilitate the transmission from energy from, let's say, a wave generation onto a data center some 1,000 miles away. Scott, any feedback, any comments?
Yeah, definitely. So a couple things on the scale of data centers. Let's start with that for a second. So today, a large data center is somewhere around 100, 200 megawatts in scale and size. These are large infrastructure assets, and you can put them pretty much anywhere on a grid that's not already at complete capacity. and with not extreme amounts of trouble. Certainly there's interconnection requirements that you need to go through. Certainly there's an increase in capacity factor that the existing power generators on that grid are going to have to step up, and the balance of how the power is going to be produced will be impacted by something of that scale. Now, regular medium-sized or small data center, 5 megawatts, 10, 15, 20 megawatts, becomes a much less burden. And this is typically what we're seeing being developed and have been developed over the last decade or 2 decades as we begin to build out I think there's 8,500 data centers globally. But what we're seeing today are with the massive growth in AI processing requirements and the advantages of having super large compute facilities, is we're seeing data centers today at gigawatt scales. So a tenfold increase in the scale of that facility. Now, a gigawatt of power generation requirement, this is an entire new power plant required just to power that single asset itself. Now, data center doesn't operate at 100% capacity all the time, depending on what it's doing, somewhere between 40 and 60, 80% capacity factor are these ranges, but also makes this quite difficult from a grid infrastructure and power planning setup and systems. So the scale is a really important thing to understand when planning a power grid, when planning where you can site and locate a project, where you can generate that power in the most advantageous and lowest cost location, but then also where you can locate a data center which has the ability to deal with the cooling, because a gigawatt scale data center produces a gigawatt of heat every hour. And so, you've got a huge amount of heat that you need to displace. And so the factors that where you look to site and where you look to locate these projects, both from a generation standpoint, but then also a data center operation standpoint, these play into really critical components. And you're right to say that necessarily where we're going to generate that power, or where the opportunity to generate that power is, and where that data center is located, are not always directly correlated. We do have technologies that can move power across very long distances. This is the AC versus DC battle that went on, and where you've got high voltage direct current transmission lines that can move power thousands of kilometers, and we have plenty of great examples of that happening and being implemented. And alternating current or regular power infrastructure lines that we've developed cannot compete on a long-term transmission. You get compounding losses over that line, versus a high voltage DC lines can move power with very minimal losses across thousands of kilometers. But you can't extract power out halfway through that process. So it's really a point-to-point transmission type of system. And so what we're seeing, certainly across the United States, is we're seeing a massive growth in the number of HVDC line development. These take a decade and a half to develop and build. Doing large power infrastructure transmission projects are incredibly take a very long time to do. Going across borders, which we have examples of, also runs into other challenges, and borders, whether that's Canada, US, Mexico, or any other country, or even across state lines, also becomes major challenges and can create super big hiccups through these projects. So this is part of the planning and infrastructure that you go through when you're trying to develop or site a project. But there's a bunch of really cool opportunities that are emerging now, where we're seeing the ability to do underground tunneling in much more efficient pathways and speeds that otherwise would have been impossible to do. And I believe we're gonna start to see the power transmission lines going more underground because of some of these technology advances and advancements, and the ability to be able to permit and develop a transmission line underneath state or national highways. This is going to really dramatically change opportunities. But these are when you're looking to develop a new facility, it's something that's super critical to plan. One other thing I want to touch on is just on the developing small modular reactor systems. This is going to be great, and we are really going to transform our ability as a species to be able to generate power in many more locations. But building a nuclear facility, whether it's a small modular reactor or a standard nuclear facility, this still takes a significant amount of time to get through siting and location and planning and setbacks. And like, you're not just going to see a small modular reactor pop up in your backyard community down the street in a small light commercial industrial park. Take a significant amount of work and risk and resources in order to have and build these facilities. It will dramatically change and shorten the time frame for developing and building power infrastructure, but don't expect this to pop up in a day or a month or even a couple of years. These will still take 6, 7 years, 10 years to plan the sites and facilities. Just going to be a much lower scale, and we're going to be able to do many more of them, and we're going to have consistency because the systems will be consistent. The manufacturing of the assets will be consistent versus today. Most nuclear power facilities are very bespoke to the site and location, and so we'll get a great deal of standardization, which will speed that up, but not in the context of how fast AI data centers are being built and developed, where they're not even waiting for interconnection for a regular grid. They're putting diesel generators on site to power data centers. Like I believe XAI's system has natural gas turbine systems that they have just in containers. So that's the speed that we're seeing some of the development happen, which is incompatible with nuclear power generation.
And thank you, Scott. I'm glad that you mentioned HVDC. Nikola Tesla would be proud. I think we need to look into his other ideas that he launched over about 100 years ago.
And we have another question from the audience. Is it true that if one animal's breeds slow down, like they are having less breeding, then it affects others as well, like a circular ecosystem or something? There's a question from the chat.
Should I answer that?
Sure.
Yeah, that actually does happen. So a very good example is within the grasslands arena. So for example, if you have 1 year of low rainfall, you're going to have a decrease in the offspring of the impala. The impala is one of the key prey species for most of the predators in the area, which means you start having more competition between predators. The lion is a stronger predator than a cheetah, so you're going to start seeing more successful kills from lions, less successful kills from cheetahs, in which case the cheetah population will actually start to decline. That takes a few years. You have the cycle then improves, you have a good rainfall season, the impala population starts to increase. The effect is cheetahs have more prey to compete for. The cheetah population will start to improve. So that's a very, very simple example of where, yes, if you have a decrease in the breeding or a successful breeding of one species can actually have a severe knock-on effect on the other species that interact with it or depend on it.
Thank you, Shauna. And we have another question from the audience. How can brands make climate communications feel actionable to the average consumer without it coming across as greenwashing?
I'll take that one, I guess.
All right, Paulina.
I think that the key is actually showing the impact. So another mistake that even people do this, right? It's I'm doing this, and then you assume that people will understand. So big corporations also do a lot of work to give back, and yes, of course, it's part of their ESG, right? And some institutions they're doing certain things because there is a rule or regulation, but they're still doing it, so it's still good impact. So I think showing how the consequences of doing that good deed has trickled down to the community or things like that. So, for example, get people involved. If it's having an impact in the local community, show numbers, get reports. And I think that involving others outside of the company in showcasing what is being done is great. And I think that using social media it's another way, but also, let's say, for example, that a company has gotten a huge impact. What Shana was explaining at the very beginning of the panel discussion on how there is you can track with AI the different impact of doing this one thing can have positive in all these other locations or populations of like food or whatever it is. So having evidence and showing it instead of just saying, oh, we did this, how great of us, or we're using this recycled containers, okay, that could be just greenwashing and you're just calling yourself organic. So I think you have to just show the evidence. And I think that is, and getting people involved, those are two things that are important.
Thank you, Paulina. And I think we have time for one or two more questions. So we've got a few here that came in. How do we balance economic initiatives with the moral obligation to protect ecosystems? Open to anyone.
I feel the three of us could just, the four of us could just have a whole hour discussion about morals and ethics of around our duty. But I think I can like jumpstart with 10 seconds. The air, clean air, clean water, access to food. People forget that all of that is tied together to caring for our environment. And we are 8 point something billion people on Earth. So we really have to focus on that. That is part of balancing the moral and ethics of it. And I think it's very important. It's not just about having a pretty place to be in. It's really access to being alive and living well and healthy.
And this is also, I think, comes in the idea of understanding that it's not a cost. Doing the ethical and moral thing is not a cost to society. It's not a cost to an economic activity. I've had people say, I have a warehouse. What am I supposed to do? Green the warehouse? Greening the warehouse is going to reduce your carbon emissions, improve on the water situation, and you're creating a mini corridor. And yes, it's a cost or an investment. I won't say a cost, it's an investment to green that roof. It'll generate a return for you, even if it's just the electricity or energy savings. And you are doing something morally good. So it's about changing that mindset of understanding that doing something that's morally good or ethically good is not always going to be a cost and something that's going to compromise the actual economic activities.
I think those are both solid points. I think there are easy places to start. Deal with waste. Most companies and businesses are producing a waste stream of some kind, and there's probably and likely a way of that can be repurposed or reused. Whether that's a physical waste of material, whether that's waste heat, whether that's wasted energy, whether that's one of your suppliers and your supply chains developing waste. Those are great places to start. Like I mentioned in the procurement side of things, if you may not want to invest in renewable energy or battery energy storage systems, but I know a bunch of investors that want to invest in that. And so all you need to do is write, hey, I will agree to buy electricity from some green energy, and other people will finance that work. And so if you're concerned about the economics of it, let someone else deal with that or take the advantage of the economic benefits that they know how to take advantage of. If you don't want to invest in doing those things, other people will likely be able to do that. And if you don't know or think that there's a solution out there, put it out there. Put out there that you're interested in buying a product like this. I don't think that maybe I could buy this product without a carbon emission or carbon footprint, but maybe there is somebody that does have that out there. If you're not putting out the request in the world, no one is going to come and solve your problems for you. But the other part that I want to make sure that people gather and understand is that some of these systems that we operate in make an obscene amount of money. And one of the other posts that I shared last month that sort of really struck me was a $4 billion investment into an offshore new oil well that began operating, and its return on investment was a year and 4 months, and it has a projection of operating for 30 years. So when we say we can't afford or the economic viability of these things, I mean, certainly if you're running a small business and your cost of power and your cost of goods and you're just able to make payroll, you definitely are very limited in your resources and ability to drive impact. But you're not the one that's causing the major challenge in sustainability problems. And you're also not the one hoovering up literally trillions of dollars a year in profits that can afford to pay for it and are causing the ecosystem damages. So I think that it's important to level set from that standpoint. And we want businesses to thrive and be able to continue to succeed. Part of sustainability is continuing to operate, especially for those businesses that are doing good in the world. We want them to continue to thrive and grow and scale. So always operate within those methods, but think outside of your own resources and availability, because there are lots of other people out there that are wanting and have developed solutions that you may not know about. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Scott. And I'm glad that you were able to bring up the climate finance challenge, because that's a personal question that I had after reading your LinkedIn. And the final question that we don't have time for, but I think you already pretty much answered, was what are some meaningful ways that small businesses can contribute to sustainability using green technologies? So I think we got to most of it. We have just a few minutes left. So I just want to say, if you're watching and you want to join us for the full event, go to iotmktg.com. Get your free pass. And IoT Marketing will also be hosting the Intelligent Thinking AI Summit coming up on July 17th, and the Summit of Things this October, which will tie in all of these green topics with the AI topics, with IoT topics, and all kinds of other topics, all geared towards digital transformation. So be sure to get your passes and register on our website, and let us know if you want to participate and join the conversation. We have speaking, sponsorship, and thought leadership opportunities available. Any final word, Johannes?
No, well, I just want to mention, first of all, thank all the panelists for sharing your expertise. This was a great forum. This was a great panel discussion. And of course, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. As Tiffany mentioned, we have a strong lineup ahead for the rest of the Green Think Summit. So I encourage you to stay as long as it's feasible, because it is a long session, we realize that. And last thing, as you've seen again in this discussion, we have entered the AI era. It's an era shaped by AI models, AI agents, AI data centers, and every era has its own cohort of speakers and thought leaders, and you see several here. The AI era is no different. It promises to be especially noisy. So if you're considering contributing to this conversation, if you want to play a part in shaping the AI industrial revolution, as Tiffany mentioned, we offer thought leadership programs designed to support exactly that. So feel free to reach out. We'd be glad to explore how we can help you share your perspective, and then we can help you shape the AI industrial revolution. Back to you, Tiffany.
Thanks, Johannes, and thank you again, Paulina and Shauna and Scott. We really enjoyed having you as a part of this opening panel, and we hope that you'll enjoy us for the rest of the day of sessions. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, imagine walking into a grocery store and asking the bag of shrimp on the shelf, "How was your journey from the fishery to this store? What temperatures were you exposed to? Did you get stuck for long times at a port?" Not science fiction anymore, folks. Retailers are already asking these questions and getting answers from that package using bots like Willybot. Soon, we consumers will be able to ask them too as we choose what to put into our grocery cart, likely even this year. More on this later. My name is Ashish Chatterjee. While at Procter & Gamble, I worked on hygiene product innovation to delight the consumer while infusing sustainability affordably into products and supply chains. This exposed me to blockchain and IoT to maintain integrity of natural ingredients over complex supply chains. I now advise BrandRank.ai, an AI native, on green metrics, and I'm excited by the potential that AI offers in harnessing technologies like these to empower the consumer to make informed choices as he or she shops. I just said empower. Let me explain. AI and IoT technologies are creating a sustainable shopping revolution by enabling retailers to reduce waste, optimize resources, and deliver personalized, eco-friendly choices to shoppers. Let us look at the underlying technologies next. As consumers, our challenge has been to find products that meet our personal needs while being genuinely sustainable with supportable or credible claims. Let me introduce the technologies now that are helping resolve this issue and in our favor. Generative AI or GAI anticipates our needs and suggests eco-friendly alternatives. Internet of Things or IoT ensures that we have visibility in supply chains and offers up to the minute information regarding the status of the product. Ambient IoT is an exciting fusion of IoT and GAI that works at room temperature, believe it or not. Digital twin assistants are AI-driven replicas of our shopping habits that keep us on track to buy what we need while eliminating impulse purchases. This will definitely help me when it comes to shopping at Costco next. Predictive sustainability anticipates future environmental, social, and economic impacts and helps retailers find suitable products and shopper groups to choose from. Net, we are moving from reactive compliance-driven sustainability to proactive sustainability. All of these technologies are already in play, as we shall see next. Generative AI has evolved from a fascinating technological novelty. Remember those old days of chatbots? To an indispensable shopping companion. It doesn't just react to our queries. It anticipates our needs, learning from our preferences and values to proactively suggest sustainable alternatives we might never have discovered otherwise. Let me show you with an example. Let us take the instance of going shopping for a diaper and leverage the Claude chatbot. I did precisely this exercise a few days ago. If I were to shop for performance and sustainability, I get the list in the first column. Bamboo Nature comes up on top. If I were to add affordability to that mix of considerations, Earth and Eden jumps to the first place. Now, if I were to define my sustainability by the amount of plastic contained in my product, then diaper takes the first place. Ladies and gentlemen, the point is GAI can help us select products based on our criteria. Now, while generative AI helps us discover sustainable products, IoT technology provides unprecedented transparency into the components of those products and their supply chains. IoT devices generate continuous data streams about products, from production through distribution to our shopping cart and beyond. For example, IoT sensors can track temperature conditions for perishable goods like produce and, yes, shrimp, ensuring we only purchase items that haven't been compromised during transport. IoT technology can thus help us confirm environmental certifications on the package. Remember, things like SFI, Rainforest Alliance, and so on. Now, let us look at some specific use cases of these technologies. Let's start with the beauty and personal care sector. This industry has been at the forefront of integrating AI and IoT for sustainability. Several major brands lead the way, and let's take a look at some of them. The first company to look at is L'Oreal. This famous beauty company has entered into a partnership with IBM, which exemplifies how generative AI is transforming sustainable product development. This collaboration has created what is believed to be the cosmetics industry's first formulation-focused AI model, designed specifically to create eco-friendly formulations using renewable raw materials. The AI model helps L'Oreal's research teams formulate products that not only perform well, but also reduce energy consumption and material waste throughout the production process. What excites me as a former product developer is that this isn't just about creating marginally better products. It's fundamentally reimagining cosmetic formulations with sustainability at their core. You start with renewable materials and then develop the right formula. By analyzing big data sets of formulation information, which this company has from its decades of beauty experience, the AI can identify novel combinations of sustainable ingredients that might have taken researchers years to discover through traditional methods. And believe me, these are slow, clunky, and expensive. Now let's look at another prominent company, Unilever, next. Unilever has taken a different but complementary approach, focusing on using AI to help consumers find the perfect sustainable product. They have developed AI-powered digital diagnostic tools that create super personalized consumer experiences. These recommendation tools help us find products that not only match our preferences, but also align with our sustainability values. By ensuring we find the right products the first time, these tools reduce the waste that is traditionally associated with purchasing unsuitable products that ultimately go unused. Net, L'Oreal, and Unilever are finding ways to find customized sustainable products for us. Other brands are implementing a new way for us to experience their product before they buy. This is done through virtual product testing. Brands like Sephora, with their pocket contour technology, use AI to analyze facial features and recommend suitable products without wasteful physical sampling. Similarly, Olay's Skin Advisor is helping customers find the right products for their skin needs. These technologies empower us to virtually try products before buying, ensuring we only purchase what we will actually use. The virtual try-on revolution extends well beyond makeup to skincare, hair care, and other beauty categories. Let's switch gears. Let's next take a look at the critical area of food. The food sector presents unique sustainability challenges, with issues ranging from food waste to packaging and transportation emissions. AI and IoT technologies are addressing these challenges in ways that directly benefit consumers seeking sustainable options. Let's take a deeper look. Remember that package we were talking about, which could remember its transportation journey? That was enabled by a company called Wiliot, which uses a bot called Willybot. This innovation combines ambient IoT with generative AI to enable natural language conversations with connected products, including fresh produce. You ask the package a question, and the answer appears on a smartphone. For us as consumers, this means unprecedented insight into the food we are purchasing on a daily basis. We can ask questions about a shipment of strawberries. Where were they grown? How they were transported, carbon footprint, ethical sourcing, etc. This information is based on real data, not estimates. This is currently being piloted with businesses as we speak. Wiliot plans to make this technology available to consumers through mobile apps by late 2025. That is this year. Behind the scenes, retailers are using AI to optimize inventory management for fresher food. Why is this a big deal? Food waste, ladies and gentlemen, is a huge problem. Each year, 1.3 billion tons of food, one-third of all food produced globally, goes to waste, while 828 million people face hunger daily, according to one source. This waste represents $1 trillion in economic losses and generates 8 to 10% of global emissions. Using valuable resources like water and land for food that never reaches a plate. So, what is the promise of technology? If we could significantly reduce food waste, we could feed an additional 2 billion people. more than twice the number currently undernourished worldwide, while dramatically cutting emissions and preserving natural resources. Businesses would benefit from improved margins, consumers from lower prices, and communities from greater food security. So, what is the solution that technology brings? Kaufland, the German based retailer, is tackling this challenge through integrated IoT and AI technologies that monitor food throughout the supply chain. Smart inventory systems with environmental sensors track freshness. Computer vision identifies products nearing spoilage. Dynamic pricing moves inventory before the waste occurs. Demand forecasting aligns stock with actual needs. And cold chain monitoring ensures optimal conditions. This tech forward approach creates a triple win: reduced waste for the planet, improved access to fresh food for consumers, and enhanced profitability for the business. Truly the triple bottom line. Personal care items like sanitary pads and diapers present particular sustainability challenges due to their typically high plastic content and single-use nature. However, several innovative companies are leveraging technology to create more sustainable alternatives. Let us look at two such initiatives. Sati represents an inspiring example of how technology and sustainability can converge in the personal care space. This India-based company produces biodegradable and compostable sanitary pads made from banana and bamboo fiber, which is renewable, sustainable materials that replace the plastic typically found in conventional products. This product is the number one sustainable product per the same GAI search I showed earlier, and would be comparable with diaper and Eco by Natty in the US. It could thus be a great choice for Indian consumers. In the diaper space, University of Michigan startup Ecovia Renewables is addressing the enormous environmental impact of conventional disposable diapers. How big? It represents 3.5 million tons of landfill waste in the US alone, approximately 2.5% of total waste. Ecovia grows superabsorbent biomolecules using microbes, creating materials that are safer and more environmentally friendly than conventional synthetic materials. The company has demonstrated that their biodegradable material can match the absorbency of sodium polyacrylate found in regular disposable diapers. When scaled, this could be a big deal, as superabsorbent replacements have been a huge challenge with renewables. For parents seeking sustainable options without sacrificing performance or convenience, this technology offers a compelling solution. I predict that GAI and IoT will play a big role as these companies scale. For instance, Sati can provide farmers with hyper-localized insights using IoT sensors that measure soil moisture. And there will be many such applications. So, what does the future of sustainable shopping with AI and IoT look like? As we look ahead, the integration of GAI and IoT promises to transform sustainable shopping across all the consumer products we typically use. several emerging trends will likely shape this future. First is this hyper-personalized sustainability. The future of sustainable shopping lies in hyper-personalization, which is customization to us, not just recommending products based on general sustainability criteria, but understanding each consumer's specific sustainability priorities and values. Some consumers might prioritize carbon footprint, while others may focus on ethical labor practices or even packaging waste. Advanced AI will tailor recommendations to these individual values while still ensuring products meet functional needs. The second one is circular economy. AI and IoT will increasingly support the circular economy principles by tracking products throughout their life cycle. For instance, IoT sensors could monitor product usage and condition, then recommend appropriate recycling or even upcycling paths when items reach the end of their life. This closed loop approach will help us, consumers, maximize product value while minimizing environmental impact. The third aspect is about supply chains. Complete supply chain transparency will become standard, the norm, with consumers able to verify sustainability claims instantly through IoT-enabled product tracking. This transparency will extend beyond materials and manufacturing to include energy usage, water consumption, and labor condition to source materials, make and transport. This transparency will extend beyond materials and manufacturing to include energy usage, water consumption, and labor conditions to source materials, make, and transport, providing a comprehensive sustainability profile for every product. The last aspect I would like to talk about is the one on predictive sustainability. In this aspect, GAI anticipates not just what products consumers like us may want, but also the environmental impact of those choices and informs them of us. These systems could then suggest alternative purchase patterns or timing to reduce overall environmental footprint. For example, recommend that we buy certain products in bulk to reduce packaging waste, or time our purchases to align with more efficient delivery routes. To conclude, the convergence of generative AI and IoT has fundamentally transformed the landscape for sustainability conscious consumers. From beauty products to groceries to personal care items, these technologies are creating unprecedented transparency, personalization, and access to truly sustainable options. As a consumer committed to making environmentally responsible choices, I hope you find these developments incredibly empowering. No longer must you choose between convenience or conscience, performance or planet. Through innovative brands leveraging these technologies, from L'Oreal and Unilever to Sathi and Ecovia, sustainable shopping is becoming not just possible, but preferable. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.